So, hi there, and welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth today. In case you're unaware, my name's Anna. This is my channel, Lorena's Labyrinth, and of course, you will have seen this. Now, before I actually get into the content of the video today, I'm going to actually shake it up once again and do things a little bit differently. I've reverted back to doing chitter chatter, and this is because I would like to discuss the life and times of Michael Mosley and honour the fact that he actually was a very incredible man, not just because of what we know and see in the media because of his celebrity status, but if we look at numerology, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to look at numerology as per the person. And because he was so public, I think everybody can give testimony to the uniqueness and the power of his divine plan when we look at it. And so this is one of the rare occasions when we actually see an individual who walks their divine plan, who lives it, and then transcends into the other side. So I know a lot of people are going to be grieving, but I think with the help of numerology, we can actually be assisted through the grieving process and get understanding about not only the meaning of life for now in the current time frame, but how it basically unfolds. And I don't know particularly, because of course everybody's got free will. Only those people that are close to him will know whether or not he actually was consciously aware of a lot of the stuff that he was doing. But certainly he intuitively followed his guidance and his path. And this is why I think it's worth recognizing him beyond his passing, but rather looking at the life of Michael Mosley. Now, before I get into it, I want to just say, look, thank you very much for being part of the channel. Thanks for visiting today. You can always use the wheel nut because I've got an Australian accent. If I am too fast or too slow for you to understand, you can use the wheel nut on the YouTube videos to actually speed up or slow down the video content. So bearing that in mind, let's crack on and really take a look at Michael Mosley, because I must admit he was one of the most fascinating of all the numerology charts that I've had a look at. Now, bear in mind, because I don't know his time of birth, I haven't been able to take a look at what his karmic debt was before he was born, things like that, the more personal stuff. I'm talking about the information, excuse me as I swallow, the information that I was able to gather simply by looking at the public information. And it's rather, I say rather, putting some strenuous emphasis on the fact that it's a very interesting numerology chart, which shows what a very special and unique person he was, what a gift to the world he was, and he fulfilled his purpose even before he passed. He passed, I think, at a young age, but at the same time, his life has been incredible. So in the first instance, with respect that many people are grieving Michael's passing as a loss rather than celebrating his life and the legacy he has left for all of us, I'm aiming with this video to be able to shift the process of grief and sorrow and sadness to one of gratitude and recognizing the blessings that he actually gave to us. And I think respect for the fact that he actually walked his divine path. Everything that was laid out for him throughout his numerology, you know, if I was doing a numerology report, which I've kind of done for this, it highlights the gifts that he comes into the world with and explains that he actually was a very complex character who managed to adhere to his life path and excel at it. And this is a very rare thing for somebody to have all of the strengths that are associated with his birth date and to actually manifest them and live up to them. To live up to them is a fine achievement in itself. So this is what I aim to talk about today with numerology, how it can actually benefit us to ask or to show ourselves what we're capable of should we decide to live up to our expectations. Now, or the expectations, not the expectations, the opportunities that are shown through our birth date. Now, okay, he's passed over, but he's a perfect example to show what can happen when people live up to it. And in recognition of that, we've got to consider the fact that obviously we know him on the earth plane as he was, which was a humanitarian. He had a genuine care and regard for the people around him. He was very charismatic. He was an absolute blessing. he came up with novel ideas to improve the health and well-being for many, and this was through not only diet and eating but also psychology as well. He had the capacity to understand the pain that people were experiencing, and he also was a role model for many people. The ideas that he came out with, from what I recall on memory, he actually trialed and tested them himself. So he used his experiences to benefit the greater majority. The reason why I think he's incredible when I look at his numerology is because, as a public figure, we can actually see when we look at the numerology that, it's very, very rare for people with the capacity of their numbers. He's got mastery in his numbers. It's very rare for people to actually achieve these things, and he did. And this is why, okay, he's not living right now, but he is an example and a role model for all of us. And I would go as far as to say this is the legacy that he has left for us, and it's incredible. So I'm going to explain right from the get-go. I have made notes, but this is so that I don't forget anything. So I might stumble and stall every now and again, but just bear with me, because this is really, I believe, quite interesting to look at. It really is a celebration of his life and his achievements and what a remarkable person he is. So on one level, he would have been extremely complex. Well, there's not one level. He would have been extremely complex as a person. He has this appearance of being straightforward and easygoing, but on a deeper side, there is this complexity to him. And so it's not all about the appearance that we show to the people around us. So to look at what this means, his birthday is actually March 22, 1957. So from a personal perspective or individual, he would have been no stranger to pain. And by that I mean emotional pain. This is in his birth charts. And when we go through it, you're going to, I imagine, have a few comments, which I invite you to put comments up. I can imagine there are people sitting there going, oh, poo-poo, we've all got pain. We've all been there. Well, yes, of course we do. Part of living the human experience is to experience pain and rise above it. However, the difference with Michael's numerology is simply in this birthday, it is the depth that varies. And I guarantee there would be very few people that would have experienced the levels of emotional pain that he would have. And this is because he has master numbers. And I make jokes because I also have master numbers. And anybody that I know that has got master numbers has turned around and said, well, it's about life experience. It's about the number of challenges that you face and that capacity to rise above it. Now, Michael really was a young man, really. To die at age 67 is fairly young to have actually achieved the fullness of the mastery of these numbers. For most people, it takes a lot longer. So credit where credit is due. So when we talk about doing a numerology report, it's actually essential that we also include the astrological influences. And for Michael, he was born on the cusp of Pisces and Aries. And this in itself shows complexity because the cusps carry traits of two different star signs. So he's on the Pisces and Aries. So I would say potentially in his public persona, he was more Aries oriented. Because, well, actually, even on an emotional capacity, okay, because when we talk about Aries, we're talking about the warrior traits of passion, and this will have given him the fight and the will to rise above the earlier problems that he would have experienced in life. But with respect, there are polarities in all of life, and this includes the astro signs, okay? So while we might admire the passion and the strength and the capacity to endure, shall we say, and to carry on, and the decisiveness that comes through with the Aries when being positive, they also have that flip side of a level of perhaps intolerance or even blunt communication. There will be, I would imagine in the future, some people that are going to turn around and say less than charitable things about him because they actually didn't understand him because of the complexity of his personality. But I would imagine because he has charisma as well, that probably the worst types of comments that people might make would be along the lines of, well, he was a pretty good bloke and, he meant well, but, when X, Y, and Z, and they will then, I would imagine, finish the sentence or complete it with something that that was morally justifiable, such as, if he felt that somebody was doing the wrong thing or whatever, he could be quite harsh and even volatile in his communication when he felt provoked and justified. And that would actually make sense to me, because I would imagine, as the Arian and the Pisces cusp, he actually would be very intolerant of people that he felt were treating people badly, especially if those people were vulnerable and unkind. So I do see that he actually would be a defender and a warrior for vulnerable people. Now, the other reference too is that he has this, as I said before, charismatic character about him. And these aspects would have been drawn to him, sort of double whammy, if you like, from the fact that he has the Pisces and the Aries. Both of them enjoy social activity. Both of them enjoy a good laugh. And when we get into his numbers, they're going to reveal that he was an independent learner and a questioner. And he would have had a rebellious streak to him because he had to learn his own way. So what we're going to see as we go forward in the charts is that his primary method of learning was from that of experience. And I stand to be corrected, of course, by people that knew him or were closer to him or had some kind of contact with him, that actually I'm misinterpreting. But I'm just giving you the indications of what I see here in the charts. I would also hazard a guess and say that there are indicators within this astro signs, this combination, that maybe in his younger years he did over imbibe in things like alcohol as part of partying too hard. By this I mean to the point not necessarily of addiction, but potentially dependency. I do understand, I haven't watched a lot of his shows, but I do understand that he's quite honest and transparent about the fact that he had a bit of an unhealthy lifestyle at one point in time, and this is what led to his experiences of creating dietary change, and where he learned different things and information that he could share with the rest of us as part of us reaching our potential or living healthier lifestyles. Now, the reason why I say the alcohol is part of it is because I think there's a tendency there within this cusp sign for the overindulgence. Like I said, eating the healthy foods, loving the fine foods, enjoying them. We know that it was processed foods that he enjoyed, but I would also say that he probably wasn't impartial to a drop of the fine red stuff or something like that. I haven't watched the shows. He may have already said this, but this is in the charts. If he did say this, it would be reflected by his astrology. But either way, obviously, based on his experience of living, he recognised that a time came for him to make these changes. Now, one of the things I will say that is reflected through this astrology, and this once again is based on my experience of interacting with people, is that people with the Aries qualities, they have this strength of will to be able to stop something. And I'm actually talking about addiction here, where they can make a decision to say, that's it, I'm going clean. And they will attempt to change their lifestyle. But the difference between somebody that just stops doing unhealthy behaviours and Michael Mosley is, the other experience and observation I've had is that these people, they can, through the strength of their will, stop the bad behaviours. Now, they might be able to stop it for 18 months, 2 years, but then they tend to relapse and fall back into the negative traits. And this is because they haven't put in the supports around them and made the lifestyle changes. Now, by that I mean, for somebody like Michael Mosley, let's say I'm right in my beliefs that he was having, I hope you can't hear that noise in the background. I've got a puppy that's just running amok, but I'm going to ignore him. The difference with Michael is he has that capacity and strength in his character to go, that's it, I'm making changes. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to stop eating unhealthy foods, and I'm going to stop drinking too many fine wines or whatever it is that he decided to do. Now, he can make that decision, but for Michael, what he does is he makes the plans on how he can stay clean. Other areas that I've seen is they don't make plans, and these are the ones that will fall back into the bad habits and patterns. And this is because they are reliant totally on their capacity to say no to antisocial things like too much partying or whatever. They become self-reliant on the will without actually making the changes. And I think that's a credit to them in themselves, by the way, to show the strength that lies within them. And Michael carries that. in his charts. Now, the other thing that he carries is the Pisces traits, which is this really caring, sensitive, and nurturing side. It can be quite emotional. Now, as I say, there's always a negative spin to everything. You can have the positive, you have the negatives, and this is because life is about polarities. So when we talk about the Pisces person, they are very emotional and sensitive and caring, but unless they learn to master their emotions, they can become extremely turbulent, and they can actually have the knee-jerk reaction, shall we say. They can actually, I'm not going to go too far into the negative, but basically they can allow their emotions to consume them. And if we were to talk, because Aries is a fire sign, Pisces is a water sign, I rationalize it like this, if you have fire and you're too emotional, it can sap the passion out, that it puts out the flames of passion, shall we say, if you're too emotional. So there's got to be a balance there. Now, on the other hand, if you're a water sign and you've got too much passion, it can just suck the life force out of you, because the water, the emotional sensitive part, evaporates because there's too much burning going on, if that makes sense. And so what we have with a cusp such as Michael is that he carries all of these traits. So even without his very complex numerology, he is already showing complexity right at the get-go with his astro, because he's got to merge and master his passion and his emotionally sensitive side. And to me, from sitting on the outside looking in, it looks to me as though he's done it. And I think, once again, credit to him. Let's celebrate his achievement. He was a true master in this regard. Now, if you thought there was complexity in the astro, you'd be right, okay? But that's not the end of it. My goodness me, this is why I'm like, we really need to acknowledge the contributions of this man and just how brilliant he was at a core level and where he accessed it, okay? So the complexity of the astro is one thing, but then we take a look at his birth date and we break it down from a numerology perspective. What we have here is his day number is the 22. He was born on the 22nd of March. That is a master number. It is very rare. We're going to talk about this in a moment. Then when we talk about his ruling number, this is the sum of the 22nd of March, 1957, adding all those numbers together. You come to a total of 29, which is reduced down to 11, which is another master number. So he has master day numbers and master ruling numbers. Oh my goodness me, this is rare in itself. So, of course, this little bit that I'm going to mention now is speculative, okay? We're going to look into what the master numbers actually mean. And I have to acknowledge the fact that Michael was actually a scientist. So he was a man of science. I don't know if he was consciously spiritual or not, or whether or not he was just following the pull of his heart as he made his decisions through life. And that would be fascinating to find out. But of course, I don't think I'll ever know or have it confirmed to me. But when we talk about his ruling number being a 2911, the first thing to acknowledge is 11 is the first of the master numbers. And for the purposes of this video, we're going to follow the same pattern, looking at the number 11 from a general perspective. Realistically, there's only three ways we can get a number 11. That's either 29, 38, or 47. So he's a 2911. Now, from a general perspective, the 11s are innovative, they're inventive. I think we could agree this applies to Michael. They inspire people. Yes, he did. They tend to be experts in their, or specialists in their fields of work. Yes, he was. They can be perfectionists. Well, we won't know if we got, unless we were close to him. And then they are able to combine these traits, if you like, with genuine compassion and a humanitarian desire to reach out and uplift humanity. Oh, hello, is that ringing any bells? Yes, he was. In many ways, we would say that a person that's a 2911 is a bringer of light to others, and that they also have confidence and belief in themselves. I think that would be a fair assumption to make of Michael, because we don't know him. They are philosophical and well-informed. Well, I think it's fair to assume, yes, he was. They tend to be deeply sensitive and care deeply for their family and friends, and they're very dependable, fair and honest in their dealings. Well, these are assumptions that we could make, and I think it would be fair to say that this is probably correct based on the messages that are coming out from his family now that he's passed over. We would only know from speaking to his work associates and people close to him if the next part of this is true. They can be uncompromising in their levels of morality and ethics, and unless pressured by friends or under the influence of the day number, they can find that material life is demanding and quite dull. So he needs to be regularly inspired. If it was all work, work, work with no pleasure, he probably wouldn't have achieved what he achieved. So he actually really loved what he was doing. The refinement, beauty, and cultural values, they're all very appealing to people that have got a ruling number of 11. I think that sounds logical because, after all, without knowing terribly much about him, he clearly was travelling to Greece on holiday when he passed away. So culture probably did interest him and he would have appreciated, I'm sure. They naturally gravitate towards these things because it allows them the opportunity to express their own innate desire and appreciation of beauty. And I use the word spirituality here, but as I said, I don't know if he actually was consciously spiritual, or whether or not we use the word spiritual within this context to say that it nourished his soul. Now, long before I became consciously spiritual or aspiring to be a spiritual person, I used to say that I could never live inland. I live in Australia. I grew up in remote areas, and for me, the way I used to restore my soul was actually to go and sit on the shorelines of the beach and watch dolphins and all this kind of stuff. So that becomes a spiritual experience, whether we're consciously spiritual or not. And anyway, I think this is what Michael did, whether it was conscious or not. So the master number of 22 is his day number, and this is the other side of himself. It's an extremely powerful day number and is second to none. And it carries with it intuitive and practical application. And what this means is this gut instinct and the inner knowing that anything is possible. And the power of the 22 can only be realized once a person has fully integrated and mastered their mind, body, and spirit. This is basically the information that I bring through when I'm delivering the numerology videos. But what this means for the average person is, going back to the astro, when we talk about the mastery of emotions, right? When he's learned to master his feelings, which I believe he did, and combine his feelings, his thoughts, and his physical actions together, then he's stepping into the power of the 22. Now, Michael obviously was wise enough to take on board the cautions. This is what I believe, based on the observations and what we know about Michael. There is a caution that's associated with the 22, that the power must be used wisely and with discretion, and that the use of power for the sake of power will only result in internal imbalance and fragmentation, and possibly even this inner battle within. Now, because he was able to focus on and achieve his goals, this suggests that he was actually able to use the power of the 22 with wisdom. Okay, what else can I say here? I would hazard a guess and say that, based on what we know of him, that the fact that he has this wisdom, and I don't believe, based on his numerology, that he was materialistic to the point of selling his soul, so to speak. That's about the only way I can think to describe it. Money is always important to people with, say, Aries qualities, because they like beauty, and there is about the creature comforts and that kind of stuff. But they also have that moral, ethical approach where it's not money at all costs. It's not, stick the knife into this person so that I can get to the top of the food chain. They're not like that. And I think this is something that, without knowing Michael and without knowing his family situation or his work ethical situations and all the rest of it, I would be very surprised to learn that if he achieved his success in unsavory ways, because he would intuitively be aware of consequences to actions, and that what we put out there will come back and bite us. And this is beyond the fact that it would go, I think that kind of behavior would go about everything that we see in his astro and in his numerology. Now, to be clear as well, the number 22 is another magnification of the sensitivity and the care of and compassion towards people. It's actually quite a loving number, but it's not necessarily tolerant of unacceptable behavior, I must say. So just to cap off the complexity here of this man, who I just find it breathtaking. I've got to say, look, this might be becoming a long video, but I've got to be honest, I don't really care. At the end of the day, I think that it's important to do justice to Michael and his birth plan. And there are areas that I'm not going to cover in this. I'm talking about the complexity here because there are other influences that come into a numerology chart. But when I talk about a rare person, we have a cusp, we have a master day number, we have a master ruling number, and then we go to the birth chart. Now, just to explain another rarity here, many people don't have arrows on their birth chart, okay? The arrows actually symbolize further challenges to rise above as well, a lot of the time, okay? Because, they can represent strengths, but they also represent influence across the life path and what will affect our personality in that. Now, I have never seen or rarely seen people that have got 3 arrows on the birth chart, but I've never seen somebody that's got master day number, master ruling number, and 3 arrows on the birth chart. So to me, and they happen to be a cusp, okay? So to me, this just magnifies the levels of complexity associated with him. So let's take a look at these arrows. And I think it's the arrows. My gut instinct is it's the arrows that have allowed him to become a successful and tap into the gifts of the cusp, the master and ruling number, because the first arrow that we see is the number that the arrow, the green one that's through 1, 2, 3, and this is the arrow of the planner. These people inherently have a love of order and they can be methodical. They have leadership qualities. This is what he achieved, remember. The indicators, though, with the arrow of the planner is that as a child, he may have experienced some anxiety. Based on his day number, I'm pretty confident he actually did, without even knowing him and without knowing his story, because he's not just a goal set. He's not just a planner. He is also a goal setter and a goal completer. So when we look at the next arrow, this is the one that runs through 1, 5, and 9. This is the light blue one you see on the screen. So with this arrow, this is the arrow of determination. Goodness me, combined with a Aries. Goodness gracious. You can just see why he actually managed to complete. So it's the arrow of determination, and this arrow speaks to the determination to combine their compassion and wisdom that is gained and to achieve the goals. Okay, now in his youth, he may have appeared to be completely stubborn and refusing to give up, even when others thought the odds were against him. And his family members that are close to him will know whether or not this is truth. When there is this arrow of determination, there is a learning that's associated with it, and it's a learning to walk the middle path, and that not everything they think is suitable for them is actually suitable. They've got to learn to use the power of the arrow with their intuition and decisiveness rather than emotive stubbornness. And so therefore, in his younger years, he probably was emotionally reactive. That'd be typical of an Aries, somebody with Aries traits. And also, this arrow is combined with an idealistic ambition, if I can speak. And that ambition comes through from the number 9, okay? Because the numbers on the birth chart carry influence as well. I'm not going to get into the inclusion of the numbers and the absent numbers on the birth chart, but if I was doing a numerology report, I definitely would. Okay, so to me, I would say that he's learned the lessons of the number 9 and he's been able to implement them. Now, what I find to be breathtaking, actually, as far as these arrows on his birth chart goes, is actually the purple one. And this arrow is called the one of spirituality. So from my perspective, yeah, he's a scientist, but I have to wonder if he was inherently spiritual or if he was consciously spiritual, if he actually understood the bigger picture, shall we say, the universal picture. At least on a subconscious level, I believe that he did, because this arrow comes with the understanding of creative principles and the capacity to reflect and to have compassion. And it integrates philosophy and thought and ideals with a practical approach. And we know this because we've seen Michael's work, and we know that he was able to apply his wisdom, his knowledge, his compassion, and all the rest of it into a practical approach for all people. And the arrow of spirituality is one that is kind of a culmination of learning from the sum total of experiences. Now, I just want to remind that there is this learning their own way. You can't tell them. And really, why should we? They have to learn and experience and understand in ways that make meaning for them. And it doesn't come from book knowledge. So they've learned their own way, and this is what he did. Now, when we talk about the arrow of spirituality as well, it does talk about personal growth. And it really reiterates this, the fact that people like Michael, because he carries the arrow, they would prefer to have hands-on experience as opposed to the book learning. And because they do it their way, it gives them an inner power that provides a sense of calmness and serenity in their adulthood, and this is the way they're conveyed to others. Now, funnily enough, and I would imagine family member will be sitting there going like, really? But I think if they actually dug deep and were a bit honest, they might see some similarities here, okay? The Dalai Lama is an example of what this arrow of spirituality just on its own. He doesn't have as complex a birth chart as what Moseley does. But anyway, you know that when you see the interviews with the Dalai Lama and that kind of stuff, he does bring forth humour, he does make people laugh, and there's a certain inner strength that radiates from him, and wisdom and peaceability or whatever. Now, Michael had those with him, but he probably exhibited in different ways. But he brings hope. There are hope bringers. Children that are born with the arrow of spirituality, they initially will hold a trust in people, but at the same time, they have an innate desire for natural justice. And you wouldn't lie to somebody with the arrow of spirituality because it's not appropriate. Well, lying is never a good thing, but for children to be lied to, particularly if they've got the arrow of spirituality, it can be quite harmful. So parents would need to make sure that they didn't breach their children's trust. So it would be interesting to know Michael's relationship with his parents and his early childhood, because I suspect that there potentially was not as wonderful as we might like to think. But at the same time, I don't think he would ever speak badly about his parents anyway. But I'm going to close off now talking about Michael, because there's a lot of information to take on board with this. Actually, no, do you know what? I'm going to summarise. I'm going to give you a little bit more here, because based on his numbers, and because of the fact that he was a scientist, I find it interesting. He may not have tapped into all of the gifts. Only his family would actually know this. The 22 is associated actually with the capacity to have psychic vision and visionary. And for many people, you can shut that down, okay? So for the people with the 22, they can just go from their intuition and gut instinct. But if they wanted to develop the power of that, they would actually have what we call psychic ability. They could develop the clairs. They might be able to see spirit and that kind of stuff. So that's just with the 22. What I would be interested to know is whether or not he actually did do that, because when you've got the arrow of spirituality, the children actually basically are more psychically aware usually than what their parents are, and certainly spiritually aware. And I would say based on that, he would understand the laws of karma, whether he consciously did them or not. But, so there are some questions that I raise here because I don't have any feedback as to whether or not I'm right in my interpretations of what I'm seeing here. But I think at the end of the day, we can close by saying this man was remarkable. He actually, through the course of his life, he did achieve the potential that is shown through his numerology, through his astro, through his birth charts, and he created a legacy for those that he's left behind. So yes, he will be sorely missed as a human being on the planet, but at the end of the day, the other thing too, free will. He chose to take the path that he did that day, literally. And so therefore, I speculate and wonder if he has achieved what he needed to achieve as part of his divine blueprint. If I follow my own beliefs, I believe he has. There's no question about it that when a person transcends, it's part of the divine blueprint. But I still am human and I like to rationalize things sometimes. But I think if I was to draw upon the human aspect of myself, I would say, okay, he chose that path that day. He chose to leave the company of others. He chose to make the trip on his own. So that was a solo journey for him from the beach back to his hotel. He chose the path, whether he got lost or not, and he chose to sit down on the shelf. I don't know too much about his actual passing. And when things happen to that extent, my thoughts run to, because I have experience years ago of somebody that passed away suddenly, and the family was just in pure grief. But in this particular instance, the lady was actually a psychic. And when her children were going in and packing up her stuff, they actually saw that she had written down her death. She actually was aware that she was going to die and how she was going to die. And what she'd done was, because she had access to the knowledge, she called her family together. Oh, God, bit of a story. I'll give it to you here. Just perhaps to put some understanding here, when the kids were going through it and her son told me about it, they saw that she was aware that she had other things to do as a soul, that her mission for this life was finished or coming to a close. And before we call it transcending, before her spirit left her body, she needed to bring her earthly children together. So she organised for them to have a holiday in one of the, I won't say as part of protecting privacy, she organised that the family would get together in one city in Australia and they would celebrate Christmas together, which they did. And then on the day that she was leaving to board the plane, she actually passed away on the tarmac. And anyway, she had predicted all of that. And what she passed away of was she had a heart attack on the tarmac. So the son was saying to me he couldn't believe it, because he was a skeptic until he saw her diaries, and he said she knew it was going to happen. She knew exactly how it was going to happen, and she even wrote down the reasons of why it was going to happen, because she had a job to do as a spirit and the body was actually holding her back from achieving these goals. So he was left with this situation of he can accept rationally that she knew she was right with everything she wrote down, but how would he prove that her spirit was going on to complete these other tasks? He won't know, right? So I guess where I'm going with this is, when it comes to Michael, he has completed his task. He has left a legacy. He was an amazing man, and now he's passed on, and I'm sure in spirit he's doing other amazing stuff. And I might do a video on grief and grieving to help people to understand how they can stay in touch with souls once they've passed over, because just because the spirit has left the body doesn't mean the spirit no longer lives. It does. Life goes on, just takes a different shape. But anyway, I'm going to leave that with you to think about that and quickly try and finish off this video, because I'm starting to get a bit pensive. I'm starting to feel a bit deep and meaningful. So this video has got very long, and I do apologise for it. So I'm going to quickly crack on and just gloss over what's happening on the channel for you. The colour content is going up, going well. Check out the Power of Colour playlist, I think it's called. So you will have seen Ruby go up this week. It's a colour associated with stamina, enthusiasm. It's very dynamic, and it's also to do with new beginnings. You can watch that video on the playlist of the Power of Colour. You will also have seen another one of my favourite colours go up, the colour plum. Of course, that's associated with the divine connection. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't had time to watch it, go and check it out if you feel like it. So next week you're going to see the colour of watermelon go up, and believe you me, that was a bit challenging to create the background colour for that, just trying to find the right match. Same with the colour burgundy, actually. It really challenged me to find the right shade. So, it's okay, because it means that you get to actually spend more time on actually visualising what the colours look like for you. But anyway, burgundy is associated with enthusiasm and walking your life purpose, which is interesting considering we've done numerology today on Michael Mosley and the life path, if you like. The other thing I would make mention of, just for the sake of it, is from a colour perspective, I was actually trying to get a colour that reflected red garnet, which is a beautiful colour and which I believe would be associated with this. If you watch this video and you decide to do the activities, I do recommend that you could even do it holding a piece of garnet. Just a bit of extra thought there for you. So, of course, if it's the angel content that you're interested in, we have the Angels, Angels, and More Angels playlist. And the content for that is going along pretty good. I'm getting there. It's not happening as fast. Hello, I don't know what's happened to my stamina. I don't seem to be able to do things as quickly as I used to be able to do. But either way, it's still coming along. It's progressing nicely. So, of course, last week you will have seen the information go up on the Angel of Vibration. It's actually really important to tap into this kind of information because this is particularly important to manifestation and trying to create any form of change, actually. Because when we talk about vibration, we're talking about energy and energizing our goal setting, goal completion, goals. Yeah, just achieving our goals, whatever they are. And so to do that, the more we can raise our actual vibration, whether we believe in the spiritual or not, you know what I mean? We might believe in energy. Some people just believe in energy, they don't believe in angels. But whatever, if you give these techniques and strategies a bit of a whirl, literally, no pun intended, let me know how it goes for you. I'd be interested to hear. I shouldn't say guarantee because that would be well, it's not actually misleading, I think, but it might be a violation of YouTube terms. Either way, I would say based on my experiences, and they might be different to yours, I noticed observable changes in my life very quickly, even though I didn't believe in angels, once I started practicing the strategies. Next week, you're going to see the video loaded on Onkanon, the Angel of Communication. Now, I thoroughly recommend this one. Of course, I recommend all of them because I make them. But at the end of the day, this is free information. It doesn't cost you anything except a little bit of time to watch the videos and maybe a little bit of time to try and practice some of the strategies and to open yourself up to being able to experience miracles. Now, I have had some miraculous experiences. And with this particular video, I do talk about some of them in brief on that video of what I've experienced by drawing upon the angels of communication and her specifically as part of resolving some issues in my life. But at the end of the day, too, I think it's important to clarify that when we talk about miracles as human beings, for the angels, they actually see them as blessings. They don't see them as miracles and somehow making the impossible possible. For them, blessings and giving blessings are perfectly possible. We're the ones that apply the word miracles on them. So it's about accessing into the blessings of the angels. And things like the quotes and artwork. Well, basically the same as the last couple of weeks. I'm staying on top of the quotes, but the art reels I'm kind of falling behind with. And because I'm focused, this is about managing channel time and energy and that kind of stuff. Doing the transcripts and the video creation, if you like, because I like to be artistic to a level when creating them to try and get something beautiful happening. That's quite detailed in itself to perfect it from my perspective. So I tend to spend more time on creating the videos at the moment, and that involves the transcripts. At some point in the not too distant future, I will get on to doing the art. For now, though, my friends, I'm going to love you, leave you. I'm going to close this out. It's such a long video. I apologize, but I think Michael deserved it. And I'm interested to hear your feedback and thoughts and just what your observations are. And actually, if you knew him or you knew somebody close to him, and you can confirm or refute any of the suggestions that are outlined in the birth chart, that would be fascinating as well. But right now, I'm going to say love you, leave you. Have a wonderful day, wonderful week. I will catch you on the next video. And if there's a subject that you want me to talk about, leave a comment, okay? If you like what you hear and see on the channel, please do like and subscribe. It's all appreciated. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye for now.